So guys, this is Monday. It's about 9 o'clock right now. I have managed to do a little bit of reading today already because I'm a bad bitch who gets shit done. I think I'm about, let's see, I'm gonna say about 40 pages into the Ghostmobile. And I picked this one first just because obviously, like, you know, it's middle grade. It's really short, it's just an easy cash read, and I want something like, you know, just really casual and like, you know, kitschy, just start off like, you know, the reading rush, something that I can just slam through, be like, that's right bitch, I already completed a challenge, it's only like 3 hours in, and then like, you know, suffer through like, you know, the couple books that'll probably be a little bit dull at the beginning. So I'm getting it, like, you know, I'm trying my best. Since, like, you know, I'm thinking, well, Ryan, you just, like, reading all week's gonna be super boring, you should, like, plan shit. And so, I'm gonna try to do a little bit of baking, maybe, on Tuesday. We have a plum tree in our yard, which has not been picked at all in the last couple of years, and I would love to pick some plums. You know, I'm much more accomplished as a cook than I was when I was in high school. And so, this year, I might want to make some sorbet, I might want to make, like, you know, a fruit curd or a compote, just like do something with the fruit. And while I'm doing that, maybe I can, like, you know, start busting an audiobook and kind of just like do something creative. On Wednesday, I need to drop off some paperwork at DHS, so I'll probably have to, like, you know, get up early for that, and that's actually going to give me plenty of time to, let's see, listen to some more, like, you know, audiobooks. So I'm excited. Like I said before, I have 7 books, there we go, planned, and I also have Such a Fun Age World, so hopefully I can get to it this week, but if not, I'm going to try to bust it out next week if my doesn't expire by then. Whatevs. Anyway guys, I'm going to start listening to The Bear by... name escapes me, but you know, that's the magic of editing, fam. Also gotta get to work, so... toodaloo. Hey guys, what's up? This is 3 o'clock right now. It's still Monday. I just got work about half an hour ago. I'm gonna, like, literally go visit my mom, eat dinner. But before I do that, I want to talk about, like, you know, the 2 books that I've been reading, right? So first up, we have the Ghostmobile. I'm on chapter 7, you know, and it's pretty good. One thing I noticed a lot more, like, after, like, you know, rereading it, is that the characters are a lot more defined. I just eating a Kinder Bueno, so I have a little chocolate in my hand. There's, like, you know, there's a lot more personality to the characters, and kind of the main conflict is that the character, whose name is Ryan, just like my name, is essentially, he wants to, like, you know, live in the big city with this shit to do, and he has friends. But now he's in, like, bumfuck Wisconsin, and he ain't got shit to do, and it's like, you know, he's pissed, his sister is pissed, his brother is pissed, his 5-year-old other sister is pissed, you know, and the parents are just like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing, we are pioneers, we are goal setters, we are getting shit done, and they're just like, where's the fucking internet, bitch? And I'm like, I can relate to these feels. What's happened, though, is that essentially, the day that they came to town, there was a lethal bus accident where a bookmobile essentially crashed in, like, you know, a ditch, and 2 people died. And you're like, what? And, like, they don't go, like, they kind of gloss over the fact that they were, like, killed in an accident, but pretty much what happens now is that these ghosts are just like, hey there, neighbors, you want to help us go into the good light and go away into that good night? And they're just like, well, we ain't got shit else to do, so let's get it. So pretty much they made first contact Ghostly Goose, and they're like, okay, you don't want to eat my brains, this is fucking great. And they're like, yeah, we're trapped, like, you know, in eternal, like, you know, in this eternal cycle where we can literally just go down the road and die again, so yeah, can we do something else? And they're just like, okay fam, well, I mean, we're just like 3 random fucking kids from New York or something, but we'll help you out, fam. And I like it. It has some pretty good characterization, and as middle grade goes, I'm actually really enjoying it. It's definitely more what I would call, I guess, magic realism than urban fantasy, because it's very realistic except for this one small supernatural or paranormal detail, as opposed to other books of Ibsen, which has a very fantastical feeling to the world. Hey guys, what's up? as you can see, I'm super sweaty because it's hot as balls outside. And quick update. So it's around 5 o'clock tonight. Like, I got off work, I went ahead and did dinner with my mom. And if you guys can't notice by the shaky cam and the lovely pastel patterning behind me, this is my mom's mural. As you guys can see, you might have seen it from like, my quarantine vlog, but this is the wall that I made for my mom during the quarantine. So it's super cool looking. Just appreciate these younger pictures of me and my random cousins. And this painting that I actually did. This is my painting. Anyway, so I wanted to talk to you about books in front of this aesthetically pleasing background and my mother's messy kitchen. But anyway, let's get on with it. So I'm halfway through The Ghostmobile by Kathy Tapp. Hopefully that's her name. And I'm enjoying it. Like I said, it's a reread. I've literally read that book like 50 million times because all I used to do as a kid was just like reread all of my books. Kind of the centralized conflict is that the kids are kind of trying to find their place in like, the middle of bumfuck Wisconsin. And like, there's no internet, there's no friends, and they're trying to figure shit out, and there's nothing to do. And so they kind of like, have a loss of identity. And they're really trying to find themselves, trying to figure like, what are we going to do in this new life, this new situation after we've moved. And what just happened was that one of the ghosts, a kid their age, because unfortunately children and teenagers die as well, sometimes unexpectedly with unfinished business. And she had basically accidentally stayed behind the last cycle, because if you guys read ghost stories, you do know that some ghosts have cyclical natures. They'll appear at certain scheduled times, and this is sort of like their thing, that they appear on the day of their accident and really can only travel that stretch before the untimely deaths. So she accidentally stayed behind, so she is suddenly like, living like during the week. So that's kind of like a new development. Also, I am so sorry for like all this shaky cam fam, but I do not own a tripod, so you're gonna deal with this potato content. I'm sorry. Anyway, the other book I was reading today is The Bear by, I'm gonna remember this man's name, Andrew Kovac. Anyway, it's actually really interesting. The whole story is told in I guess limited third person, I think is what you would call it. Pretty much it doesn't refer to either of the main characters by their names, only the daughter and the father. And it's actually it's interesting. It has this, it's not less survivalist and more almost naturalist, I guess. Like they're talking about like basically using everything from the land and how they make their own shoes, and the father is teaching like the daughter how to make all these things, and it's really talking about growing up and death and loss and like a lot of other things. And it's very poetic. It's almost philosophical in a sense, and it's some nice shit. Like, it's just kind of like highbrow sad meta shit, and I'm enjoying it actually. Like, it's a pretty good book, and I'm enjoying it. I'm probably gonna like rate it around 4 or 5 stars because I'm only about a couple of chapters in, but it's progressing really well, and I'm gonna be loving to like listen to the rest of it throughout the week. I'm gonna try to finish The Ghostmobile today, and that's actually what's gonna get us on to our next cool thing that's happening. Let's go. Guys, it's a lovely, lovely background that's not as aesthetically pleasing, but the reason why I'm here is that we're going to be doing our very first like reading sprint. I've never done one of those before. So I'm reading The Ghostmobile. I'm going to try like, actually get a few more chapters in, and my mom's here with me. So let's pan and see my beautiful mama.
Hello.
Yeah, that's my mom. So what you reading today, Mom?
I'm reading Do You Want to Be a Wizard?
So you want to be a wizard? Oh yeah. Can you tell listeners what it's about?
It's about a girlfriend that wants to be a wizard book. She reads about how to be a wizard and meets a boy who steals her pen. And now she's trying to find him to get her pen back.
See, I love you, Mom, because I know that's exactly the plot, but I love you so much, Mother. You know that? Anyway, so we're going to be reading this. It's like 15 minutes. We're going to bust that shit out, and then I'm going to clean a little bit because that's why I'm here, because I love my mother and I want her to have nice things. Anyway, so I don't have a tripod, so you can't like watch a time-lapse video of us or anything, because that would be quality. And you know, bitch, that ain't what this channel's about. Okay, guys, we just completed our reading sprint. I thought I'd give you an update, because otherwise what's the point of that first clip, and my hair is like crazy. So I managed to get to page 118 in my book, and it's like, you know, pretty easy reading, so I just flew through it. And how many pages did you get, Mom?
I'm not sure.
Oh, I absolutely love So You Want to Be a Wizard. I actually thought that that was my copy when I saw it at my mom's place, but I was looking for my bookshelf the other day, and it turns out that we both own a copy, and we both thought that it was the other one's copy. So, that was interesting.
Page 47.
32 to 47? That's awesome, Mama. High five. Oh, yeah. So that was a lot of fun. I've never done a reading sprint before. Did you enjoy it, Mom?
I did it after my second stroke. I didn't think I'd read ever again.
Well, Mama, don't you think those negative thoughts. You're going to get all them things done. You're going to run a marathon. Well,
I did that the other night in my dream.
see, it was in your dream, but it still counts, Mama.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, we're going to head out because I got shit to do, and yeah, I'll update you at the end of the day. Hey guys, what's up? It's super sunny. Anyway, it's around 8 o'clock at night, which is apparently sunset now in the lovely town of Medford, Oregon. And I have a fudgesicle, so I'm living my best life. I just kind of felt like going for a walk, you know, enjoying, getting some sun, getting some exercise, and apparently getting all that with the aforementioned fudgesicle. And also catching up on The Bear, which I'm actually really enjoying. Right now, they're going down to the ocean to procure salt because pretty much there's very few remnants of the, like, you know, human civilization left. Sorry, fudgesicle is delicious. I'm dripping over my fingers. And so basically, she's seen her very first sort of, like, you know, human structure that's totally not, like, you know, their house. So it's really interesting, and I'm just really enjoying the story. I kind of didn't want to put it down when I got home, so that's why I'm going for a walk so I can listen to it some more. So now you know how I'm enjoying it, and also how melty my hand is because of it's super hot outside and my ice cream is melting. So I'm gonna run away now. Anyway, guys, so this is like about 10 o'clock tonight, Monday, and I think I'm gonna, like, you know, just put down the books for now. I'm going to give you a short update of basically my first 24 hours of the reading rush, and I guess sort of give you a short itinerary for like what we're going to be expecting tomorrow. So I did finish one book today, Go Maze, bitchin'. That was, of course, obviously, the Kiddos Mobile. I've been reading it all day. Finished it up about half an hour ago, and it was good. You know, I think I enjoyed it a lot more when I was a kid, but it's still a solid read, just some casual middle grade. I'm really happy to have like already day one, and I just like busted out like already one of the challenges. Boom, bitch, who's the boss? That's me. I'm about a hour and a half into the audiobook for The Bear, and I'm going to tell you about that tomorrow, because by the time I get to work, I should be about halfway through it. So I'll give you an update on like, you know, my thoughts and like just get a little bit more deep into that. What I wanted to talk about right now is that I am 2 chapters into my next book, and that's War Games by written by David Biscoff. He didn't write the original movie, he wrote the novelization. And, you know, still not my favorite book. Being honest, I'm not loving the writing, but I'm tolerating the writing. Like, it's not bad, it's just, it's dense. What's War Games about? So the movie is essentially following the story of this main character who has the name David Lightman, there we go. And he is essentially a cracker. Not a poor white in the antebellum South, but a 1980s hacker. But I say cracker because hacker is actually considered pejorative sometimes in the community, especially during that time period, and so I was using a more, I guess, respectful term that was used in the community during the time, but that's not the point. Anyway, who the frick do I look like, Captain Crunch? Not the point. Basically, he, like, you know, goes places, he, like, you know, and he, like, he cracks the system, he gets access, he becomes that root. And so it's in the movie, essentially what he does is that he essentially finds a backdoor access to a military supercomputer that runs war games as a way of testing for nuclear annihilation. Since war games is set in the 1980s, and the whole premise is essentially talking about nuclear mutually assured destruction and the Cold War. That's kind of like the main big theme about it. And so this random kid kind of like, gets drawn up right in the midst of this supercomputer, pretty much going crazy, and essentially trying to start World War III. And so that's pretty much like, what the book's about. Very 80s. Literally, you have a combination of sort of 80s hacker culture, which, once again, the term hacker was considered very pejorative around that time, and Cold War, like, politics. And so it is a very, I guess, periodic type movie, but it still has a lot of really just great pieces. One thing I should mention is that it actually does have a prominent role as in Ready Player One, which if you haven't read it, it's great, first of all. And second of all, uses a lot of 80s nostalgia. Let's see, being more grown up or more mature, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, when reading this, I can definitely enjoy the adult sections of it, since it follows, like I said, both sort of the military side of the story and that like kid side, the David Lightman, who's like a teenager. And so I can definitely like understand both sides a lot better. One thing I noticed that I didn't catch at all, when I first tried to read this, was there's a lot more sort of adult conversations in the book. Like literally the the prologue was literally this guy talking about his hippie ex-girlfriend who was like great in bed and grew a shit ton of weed. And I'm thinking, I do not remember that being in this book when I read it the first time. And the second chapter starts with a woman waking up because she's having an affair with her boss. And I'm like, okay, don't remember that scene either. I don't remember if that's in the original movie, but I honestly haven't seen the movie in years, so it could be. I honestly remember very little about the actual movie, just that I enjoyed watching it, so that's why I picked up this book in the first place. So it's interesting. I'm definitely going to keep reading it, but that's also one of the reasons why I chose this book early on, because I wanted to read Ghostmobile. I'm holding this upside down like I'm a racist Cheeto man. I want to read Ghostmobile first because it's short, a little bit of a primer. I'm reading this next because I know this is going to be the book that I'm going to have the hardest time getting into and getting through. This is going to be my challenge, so I'm going to bust through it, but as it is, I've been reading a lot today. I think I've done pretty good. I'm done with 1.5 books practically by the end of today, so it's like, bitch, I got this. But yeah, I'm gonna shut up now, mostly because I have a whole week of vlogging to do, and I don't want this to be super long. But anyway, dispatches from this dumb bitch. Day 1, I think I did pretty good. Tomorrow, let's see, I have work again. Obviously, I work all the time. I'm also going to be able to sleep up my mom to be her new caretaker, so that's going to be exciting. And then I'm going to try to do some baking, near the end of the night. So that's going to be really fun. There's, a plum tree in my yard. I have not picked the plums in 3 years, and I want plums, bitch. Yeah, so I'm going to, I got a couple hours before bed. I just want to chill out. I really haven't done anything fun, this week. I mean, I've been reading, and that's fun, but it's I haven't really been doing anything just, kind of chill, because I work a lot. I have 2 jobs, and, I have, this hustle. I do my YouTube channel, I do my blogs, and so I want, a little bit of me time, just time that I'm not putting expectation or some sort of time deadline on myself. And pretty much what that's going to mean is that I do need to proofread one of my articles for the Billion blog, so I'll post a link down below. And just because that's the one thing I need to get out this week. And besides that, I think I'm just gonna play probably, what is it called? Night in the Woods. That's what it's called. Oh my goodness. I started playing that game because I got it in this Humble Bundle for Itch.io. And it's so good. It is fantastic. And I'm just going to play some chill shit and be a black kitty cat ripping it on the bass and go and being a college dropout. Anyway, guys, like I said, I'm gonna do some proofreading. I'm gonna play Through the Woods. I'm gonna go to fucking sleep. And then I'm gonna wake in the morning and bust out more shit. We're gonna do Tart Bacon. I'm probably going to listen to my second audiobook because I'm that bad of a bitch. And I'm gonna shut the fuck up now. Hey guys, I'm back in the car again. I'm literally filming this like before work. And it's a little, definitely not as hot as yesterday. That was, whew, hot one. I have made some progress even though only around 9:30 right now. I got into another chapter of War Games. It's still slow going. I think with the movie, you know, you'd watch it, you'd get past these scenes, you'd be like, okay, characterization, there you go, we're all hunky-dory. But in the book, like, they really just, I'm about maybe, I'm gonna say 15 minutes into like where the movie was. I literally just get to the scene where you find out, what is this, Lightman is like a hacker, and he changes his like biology grade, which was literally like the beginning of the fucking movie. So it's like, how long is this book going to be, Ryan? I know the answer, it's like 250 pages, but like, boy, like, can we get to the good shit? We haven't even gotten to the good shit yet. And I don't know if I can deal with just this person's thought process. Lightman is just, he's almost obnoxious in the book. In the movie, he was like, cool lead hacker bro. But like in this book, he's just like, adults don't get me. Why does my dad care about me and want to spend quality time? Especially since I'm basically a fucking latchkey kid, like. And it's just like, wow, why doesn't this girl want to cheat? Like, let me find the line. Okay, let me find it. Girls, David muttered, a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach. Still, Jennifer was a pretty nice one. David guessed that he had introduced her to the idea of fooling with computers this way slowly enough. She was too locked into social programming that said the authorities made the rules, and you can't fool around with them, even if you're cleverer than the numbskulls who told you how you were supposed to be. That's, honestly, that reads like some straight up neckbeard shit, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you're so edgy. You're like big hacker bro. You're like, you know, an anarchist in society by cheating on your grades. And I'm thinking like, dude, if you're so smart, I get that your teachers suck and the system's like a prison, but why not just give a shit instead of like hacking into like your school mainframe and changing your grades? Like, I get it, it's the plot, but it's like at the same time, bro, it's like, you kind of just seem like a little bit of a pussy about it, you know? It's just like, I don't cater to societal expectations of what I should be as a person. And I'm thinking, okay, go off, queen, you know? Anyway, I'm about halfway through The Bear, and it's so fucking good. And guess what? There's an actual bear in it, you know? I thought the bear was just gonna be like, kind of like a motif. Like, there was a bear in the woods that they saw one time, and the mountain that they live on has like this rock that looks like a bear, and they look at the stars a lot, so like Ursa Major and shit. And so like, I just assumed there was gonna be like a visual motif throughout the thing and have some sort of symbology, but like, literally a bear shows up. Also, there's gonna be minor spoilers. Basically, her dad does pass away, and literally she's like going through this grieving, and this bear shows up and it's like, what up bitch, we're going on like, you know, a road trip. And I'm thinking, what? Like, I was not expecting that, you know? Like, I'm thinking, wait, her, because like, I was expecting her to die adventurally, given, you know, sort of the overall themes of the story. But I was not expecting a bear to show up, which is called the fucking Bear, Ryan. What were you expecting, you know? I'm really enjoying the book. Like, I do not want to put the book down, but I gotta, because I have to talk to you about books. Is that what a vlog's about? What the fuck is up with that? Another thing I really like, that I'm really enjoying about the story, is use of descriptions. It reminds me a little bit of like Hatchet or Touching Spirit Bear, though I feel like that's a bit on the nose for comparison, because they're both about finding yourself in the wilderness and there's a bear. I never actually finished Touching Spirit Bear, but I remember there was this, I read a few chapters. Similar like with Hatchet, like all of those like books, they have these very distinct, very just descriptionary type writing styles where you're describing everything you do, how like, you know, you craft it, how you like will make these things. It's all about sort of survivalism and using nature to create things instead of living in our, you know, industrialized society. Another aspect I really like is there's a lot of nature descriptions. And so while she'll talk about like making a funeral pyre or making a bow or like, you know, doing stuff like that, like requires all these details and all of that, they also have a lot of description of the food and the plants they eat, and it's so accurate, which I really enjoy. There was this description of a walnut tree, like lilies and stuff I read, and it was just, not only was it an amazing like visual moment, but it's actually very accurate. If you guys don't know, I have a walnut tree. Well, my family has a walnut tree. There's a walnut tree in the yard which is connected in some way of possession with my family. And so it's like, you know, like I've grown up like harvesting walnuts my entire life. And so the way it's described is just so accurate. And you can definitely tell that Kravik, or how you pronounce his name, definitely has done his research, like definitely like thought this through, because there was just like one line where it's like she brushed her darkened fingers on the ground. I love that, because if you've never picked walnuts before, you might not know like one of the sort of side effects of it. Walnuts have something that's called juglone, which is a natural herbicide that the walnut naturally produces because it hates all other plants and wishes to kill them so that it can have all the good ground. And so for most people, for a lot of people, juglone can cause an allergic reaction, though I've never seen that happen. It's similar to iodine, so it will stain your fingers and hands if you get it on them. I love that little detail because, like, you know, it's just that all those like tiny little details that like he really pays attention to when he's writing, and it's such a good story. Like, you know, it's sad a lot, but it also has a lot of these like really lovely sort of philosophical or just introspective moments, and it's a nice book. It's definitely something that I'm enjoying. It reminds me a little bit of How to Lose the Time War, not in any sort of plot way, but kind of just in that sort of, I guess, poetic and sort of meta writing style, where it's like one of those sort of short, kind of like, you know, just enjoyable books that they're not like super into plot. They're more about sort of telling a story using sort of the love of storytelling. And that's not a good description, but it's pretty bitchin'. Like, I'm glad I picked this up, because I literally would have never like looked up a short audio book unless I was seeing this reading rush, and I'm just like, I would have never picked it up in a million years unless I was like looking for a book to read like this. So it's bitchin'. Anyway guys, next what we're gonna see is I'm gonna be picking some plums after work today, so that's gonna be like 8-9 hours from now, so yeah, we're gonna get on it. Guys, what's up? It's like 8 o'clock at night right now. I've been just absolutely spamming my audio book, The Bear, because I actually haven't been home and all I've just like been running errands. And so I thought what we're gonna be doing is I'm gonna be picking some plums. Can you see it? There's a plum tree right there, and some shopping cart that does not fucking belong to us. We look like there's just some trash laying there. But I'm gonna, like, you know, pick some plums. Here's my bucket. Make some plum sorbet, I think. Like, you know, just do some fun baking, because I've been wanting to bake all fucking week. Also, the plums are a bit ripe, so I'm probably not gonna make like a plum tart cut from the flesh. I'm probably gonna be processing it into, like, you know, a plum curd, plum sorbet definitely, and I'm thinking probably a plum compote near the end of the week. I want to pair that with a nice angel cake. Anyway, let's shut up. Let's pick plums. I'm gonna listen to my audiobook and bust that shit out. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I'll show you pictures of food later. Hey guys, so it's like 10 o'clock at night right now. My day is not over, I'll tell you that much. So let's see, I finished picking some plums. I had dinner, watched like the first hour of Zootopia, which is really good, and I should probably finish it, like not a scrub. And I managed to peel myself about, I'm gonna say generously 3/4 of a cup of plums, which was a lot more labor intensive than I thought it was going to be because, you know, tiny plums. Also, I finished The Bear by Andrew Krivak. Hopefully I can remember his name sometime in this vlog. And it was actually, like, you know, really good. If I was going to rate it, like, you know, just cash, probably 4 to 5 stars. It was a really good book. Had this, like, you know, really lovely kind of, I don't know, almost like Hatchet-esque writing style. But there was a lot of repetition. There was a lot of, like, you know, moments where I didn't really know what was happening. Like, I enjoyed reading it, but it was also a bit confusing at times. The ending was decent. I thought it was pretty good. Like, you know, there's a lot about, like, you know, loss and other stuff. And I liked the book. I definitely did. But yeah, 4 to 5 stars is probably what I'm going to give it. Would I recommend it to people? I think so. If you like kind of just not really narrative-based fiction, but poetic fiction, whereas, like, you know, more about, like, you know, the words and the imagery and just sort of, like, you know, big philosophical themes, that's some good shit. I would definitely recommend The Bear for that. But if you're looking for, like, you know, a really intricate narrative story-wise, where, like, you know, shit happens and people grow, probably not, like, the book for you, if we're being honest. So my phone is really low right now, but what I'm going to do is, let me explain how to make a sorbet right at the top of my head for no fucking reason, because I'm a trash vlogger. Pretty much you got fruit juice, flesh, whatever you want. It has to be some amount of just, like, fruit shit. Not like skins and seeds, but you know what I mean. Equal parts that, plus equal parts simple syrup. So that's going to be pretty basic. I'm going to whip that out, mix it together, put it into a metal pan, freeze it, and that's how you get that sorbet. Also, what I'm going to be doing while I'm making this is I'm going to set up my second audio book, which is Due to Your Desire by, I'm going to say Brenda Thomas, but I doubt that's her name because I never get names correct. I am bad at this shit. And once again, that is like this nanny romance involving scandal person, Westmoreland something. So we're gonna see, like, you know, what's up with that. It's probably going to be rich bitchy boy getting that nanny pee. And not something I would totally, like, you know, pick up if I wasn't literally trying to, like, you know, read for it. So I've already read The Ghost Mule yesterday, which was second challenge, read a book with the in the title. And I just finished The Bear, which was read a book completely outside the house, which I've done. Even though I sat on my front porch peeling plums for half an hour to finish it. Bitch, I did it. So, what you gonna say? The other book I'm reading, if y'all don't remember the TBR, War Games, is supposed to be the book to movie adaptation challenge. So, I'm getting through that one. I read a little bit of it after, like, you know, the last clip while I was eating lunch. It was a lovely pozole. I will put a picture there because you need to see this pozole. It was really good. And honestly, like, it has a lot of weird neckbeard vibes that I don't know why, because the original movie was, like, no neckbeard. This book is, like, a little neckbeard. And I don't think Biscoff is good at writing female characters. Like, literally, there's only been 2 female characters in this entire book, and both of them are kind of a little bit slutty. Like, that's really the only way to describe it. Literally, the 5 minutes we get, like, the female's perspective, like, the cool, like, you know, chick from, like, you know, War Games, is just like, wow. You know, I wouldn't probably hang out with, like, Dorky Derek, or, no, his name is David. Dorky David, but, like, maybe he can, like, change my biology grade. Like, I don't know, it'd be, like, totally cute if we, like, made out or something. Tee-hee, JK and last. And I'm thinking, okay, Biscoff,
can you write a character who in the first 5 minutes of seeing her, like, you know, the inside of her head, she isn't constantly thinking about, like, you know, banging dudes? Like, could we have that? Like, can she have an agency outside of getting dick? That's really what I'm asking. Also, Bizcoff Baby, he literally referenced one of the books he wrote. Like, no reason. He's just like, the guy was like, what if, you know, I should probably pick up this paperback that I totally shoplifted from Kmart. And so I'm like, okay, like, maybe that's an 80s reference that I'm too dumb to understand. I look it up, and it's literally another book he wrote. And I'm thinking, did you just self-reference yourself in this movie-to-book adaptation? That's like if I was reading a King novel, and one of the characters was just like, oh yes, one of my favorite books, Full Throttle by Stephen King. Wow, that guy's a really good writer. Like, that's like the writer sucking his own dick, okay? And I'm thinking, I'm gonna keep reading, because, like, it's not terrible, but I need to see where this goes and whether it gets better or worse, because it's already, like, straddling the fence like a bullfighter, okay? Like, it's right on the fence on 3 stars, and I'm just like, you're probably going to see a 3, Bizcoff, but we all know you might be sliding this way, honey, okay? This is where 0 is, by the way. So, I'm going to shut up now, grab my charger, start Duty and Desire, and make some fucking plum sorbet. And get this shit started. Hey guys, so if you've been watching the clips, I put away the survey about half an hour ago, and I was enjoying, like, you know, listening to the audiobook for them, just kind of, like, you know, feeling the moment, and so I made myself some mint tea. Really lovely. If you guys want to know how to make mint tea, you put mint in some water, and then you add some sort of sugar simple syrup, or honey, or agave, just like some form of sweetener, preferably like sort of viscous form of sweetener, and that's how you make that good herbal tea, bitch. Anyway, so I'm about 2 chapters into Duty or Desire, which, just that name, but basically, here's my thoughts. Premise. So the dude, he's the sheriff of the town, and they give, like, this whole backstory about how he had this ranch, but he wasn't into ranching, and his brother was also not into ranching, and so they hired people to do the ranch for them and make money, while he got a criminal law degree and became a sheriff, and his brother did something else, and I don't remember, but it's probably, like, you know, the introduction to him dicking down another woman in another book, and Brenda Taylor getting just more money, which, you know, get your coin, sis. But, you know, basically his main, like, issue, because, in romance books, there's always got to be something that's stopping them from boning down the second they see each other. And that's that his fiance died 11 years ago. And you think, oh, it was an accident. She just fell off her horse. No, bitch, she was murdered by her stalker. And they literally start with, like, yeah, she fell off her horse, and then she's just like, well, her stalker threw a firecracker and spooked it, and she was, like, murdered. And it's just, like, the more they talk about her death, like, the more crazy it gets, like, because you think, oh, okay, like, what else? But then you find out she was murdered during a parade, and you're like, what? Why is this a thing? But basically, he doesn't want to get up in that pussy because he's still grieving, like, his 11-year-old ex-girlfriend who died tragically and horribly in front of him, which, as reasons not to fuck, pretty good. The lady chick, which is a ward that's not all dismissive, is basically a nanny, and so when they interview her, she's just like, that's right, I basically have a PhD in children care. Like, she's literally getting a PhD in child psychology, so it's like, I'm the most overqualified bitch for raising your child. And so, you're like, okay, that's cool, like, she's really into, like, childcare, that's awesome. But then you also find out that her secret backstory is that she's on the lam from her profligate brother who's, like, in control of the multi-million-dollar corporation. And so her whole thing is trying to, like, oust her brother and her piece-of-shit mom from, like, taking control of the, like, giant corporation after, like, the dad died. And wants to get it back in, like, the hands of sort of her dad's right-hand man who was, like, literally, like, taught to, like, take over the company and, like, be the cool bitches. And, like, that's actually, like, as, like, plots go, like, like, there's some character development, this, like, they have some motivations, and I think the interesting thing about, like, reading just sort of this, like, basic paperback, like, mass market paperback, like, romance, so that, like, you get, like, the full, like, gist of, like, what's going to go on with the story, like, the backstory and, like, the motivations, like, first 2 chapters. And so you're like, okay, like, like, there's no hand-holding. They're just like, nah, bitch, this is who he is, this is their problems. Eventually they're going to get that dick, but you just sit there and relax, honey, because this is you time. And I'm like, okay, like, let's get it. And, like, I'm reading it, and I don't love the characters, because they're really not that deep. Like I just said, they literally spelled the entire backstories and motivations in the first chapter. But it's interesting, I'll say the least. Like, I'm gonna still listen to it, because as the books I'm reading are going, like, it's not terrible. But there is one small point that I did have kind of an issue with, is just the second they see each other, like, they basically, like, not insta-love, but, like, insta-boner. Like, the guy's just like, oh, look, she's young, and that hot piece of ass. And she's just like, oh, look at that tall glass of water, them shapely calf muscles. And I'm just like, okay, this is a job interview. Can you stop looting your possible future employer? Like, his sort of ex-nanny has to leave because her sister has cancer or something. They love to talk about all these characters that literally have no bearing towards the fucking plot in both senses of the word. And so he's just like, wait, I wanted a nanny, not this hot piece of ass. And then, like, basically had, like, this whole mini fight over him basically being an ageist piece of shit, but really he doesn't want to hire her because she's super hot, and he doesn't want to be, like, boning down on his nanny, which, as not hiring somebody goes, I guess that's reasonable. Like, you shouldn't want to sleep with your employees. But it's this whole thing. And then the next chapter, he comes over to her house, and she's just like, hey, sorry for being an ageist piece of shit, basically I want to fuck you. And she's like, oh, it's totally okay, I actually kind of need the job, and, your kid's cute and shit. And then there's, like, this whole scene where she's kind of overstepping her bounds, and she's just like, by the way, your little child, who's, like, a toddler in your care, and I forgot to mention this, but it's not actually his biological kid, it's his biological niece, after both his brother and her sister-in-law died in a car accident. So he has to, like, take care of, like, the kid now. And so he's just like, by the way, that little kid's gonna forget about her biological parents, and she'll never remember them. And you're her dad now. You need to step up and call yourself her dad. Even though, like, that is a seriously, like, big, complicated issue that deals with, like, a lot of people's, like, compounded grief. And there's really no right way psychologically or socially to accept that type of thing. But like, she's just like, no, bitch, this is what happened. She doesn't remember them. They're dead. They're worm food. Fuck them. And I'm just like, okay, like, you don't know these people. You literally just met this kid. She loves you for some reason, which, okay, cheap characterization. The kid instantly loves you. Like, come on. Especially since they said, like, literally the whole scene is like that person who's just like, you go to their house and they have a cat, and the cat like cuddles up with you and they look at you and says, oh, they never do that. They don't like people. And you're like, aw, that's what that scene is, okay? And so it's like this whole thing, and it's kind of weird because I get, like, it's kind of like discussing the grief, but it really feels like the lady oversteps her bound in the situation. I think her name's Mina. I don't think I've actually mentioned either of their names, which just goes to show how much I actually have been paying attention. And let's see. Oh, and then, like, the next scene that I read from this was basically the guy, he goes to, like, over to his friend, who is totally obviously another character from another one of these Westmoreland books. And they had their first kid, so that's where, like, they got some good dick and pussy. And he's just like, yeah, when I was being in a whore, I knew a lot about women. Sit by, like, sit on the stumps and I'll tell you about it. And he's like, hey, so I was interviewing this, like, prospective employee and I got a giant major boner because she's a hot piece of ass. And he's like, you know what? You're in love, bitch. And he's just like, you think so? Yeah, you have a connection. You have a thing here. You looked at her and you got hard. Insta love. That is a romantic connection. You need to write a poem. You need to swim across the channel for her. And I'm thinking, like, why is everyone, like, making it into this big fucking thing? Because, yeah, they like each other. They think they're hot. But, like, all of their friends are making out. It's just like, oh my goodness, like, you're destined for each other. You're, like, star-crossed lovers. And I'm just like, no, they just want to bone. And physical attraction is, like, only one compartment of romantic and sexual love. And you're kind of conflating this, like, super early. And I'm just like, yeah, you have a thing for them, but it's like, everyone in your life is putting on so many expectations on this proposed relationship that it's kind of creepy, It's just like, literally his friend is just like, the situation is just like, hey, so I saw the chick and, like, she was kind of hot, but, like, I don't know how to deal with this because she's my employee and that's a huge ethical ground. And they're just like, and his friend is just like, bitch, it's been 11 years. You need to get over your dead girlfriend and hop in that pussy. Live a little. Get back on that horse, bitch. And I'm like, okay, I definitely agree that 11 years is a long time to process one's grief, but it's like, maybe not any possible, like, romantic interest is instantly the person that's gonna fix all, like, your emotional damage. And also, they keep acting like them being attracted to each other is, like, the most craziest thing. It's just like, I get an instant bone over this woman, and suddenly, my life has changed. I've never felt this way. And I'm thinking, how? Like, that's some love at first sight shit that I am not loving. It's just, it feels rushed, and it's like, I can definitely understand if you see someone and you're thinking, like, wow, baby, let me whisper in your ear, and, like, that's, like, the motivation, but, like, the way they're presenting it is as something even, like, more intense, like, suddenly happened. Like, they had an instant psychic connection that, like, made them, like, super into each other, like some sort of love bug, and yeah, I'm not loving it. So, besides those small issues and me blabbering like a motherfucker, it's okay. I don't mind, like, the book. I'm gonna keep listening to it because, like, it's short, and I've never, like, read one of those, like, mass market paperbacks, so maybe it gets better, maybe it gets worse. I'm here for the ride. Since I've been yammering on for about 10 minutes now, I'm actually going to be giving you a short update on how I did today. Let's see, I've gotten to page 76, War Games, which isn't super far, but it's like, I already read, like, another book today, so I am on track, and y'all need to, like, step off. I don't know, I might try to get to, like, page 100 tonight, just that way I'm, like, about halfway through it. And I think tomorrow, like, after I do some, like, other filming, I'm gonna try to do, like, a reading sprint for an hour. And I'll probably, like, pair this with, like, another book and, like, alternate between the two. And then see, like, how far I can, like, make it between the both of them. Because this can be a little bit dry. So I figured if I pair this with, like, a more, I guess, lively book, I'll be able to like sort of like make a lot more progress and also like, you know, just meet dim goals, bitch. So it's been a long day, you know. I'm having so much fun with the reading rush, but at the same time, like, you know, I'm really pushing myself this week. So holla at your boy. I'll be back Wednesday. Probably afternoon is probably when I'm going to film next. That way I have, like, you know, a bit more stuff to talk about, and just so I don't have to, like, you know, I guess make as much time in the mornings where I'm, like, really busy. So, yeah. Hey guys, what's up? So, it's about 3:30-ish, like, you know, on Wednesday. I dropped off some stuff at DHS, went to work, it was slow, they let me off a bit early. I got lost a little trying to find East Violet, but since this is not part 29 of Ryan secretly thinks that you live in Medford, Oregon and definitely know the names of local roads, we'll get off that. So, I'm about halfway through 2 books, and I hate both of them so much, and they suck. I also got myself lunch because I wanted to, like, you know, first channel my inner Chanley Ainsley, and second, I don't know, like, I wanted to, like, you know, have a nice thing for myself. So here is a mozzarella stick. And somehow we will figure out how to both mukbang and booktube. So the first book that I'm reading is War Games. I mentioned it before. I mentioned there was, like, sort of, like, neckbeard moments, like, beforehand, like, my last clip, and I'm reading it some more, and it doesn't get better. Like, sort of, like, you know, just the weird descriptions and, like, shit like that is just, it's not great. Like, literally, there's only 2 female characters in this entire book, and they're both depicted as almost like sex pots, right? They're very overly sexualized. We have one lady who I have not seen yet again in this story, who literally was just like to have an affair with her boss, who I'm still not really sure why she was in the story, considering, like, you know, she didn't really have that much of a plot significance. And then there is Jennifer Mack, who, if you don't remember, haven't seen the film, is basically the female love interest for David Lightman, who's like the hacker boy. And see, I think it was chapter 4 begins in her perspective, and it's not great. Let's see, she hates her mom, and pretty much the only thing she really talks about is boys. Which, you know what? If this was a romance book, not an issue. Since this is an action-adventure novel, and literally this is the first introduction we have to her perspective, basically, it's just, it's bad. And so there's, like, this entire thing about how, like, you know, she exercises and she's not fat. She is not fat. She is a hot bitch. She wants you to know that. Even though she occasionally, like, drinks alcohol, but she doesn't smoke, because smoking's for whores. And then we just get to this lovely, lovely exchange. So she's like, oh my goodness, I'm near that nerd who, like, you know, fixed my grade. You know, maybe I should, like, pay him a visit. And then she goes into this whole thing about how, like, men only want one thing, and it's fucking disgusting. And then, like, you know, she opens the door, and I'm just going to read you this entire exchange. An unpleasant man with glasses answered as though expecting a pitch for Girl Scout cookies. Jennifer Mack put on her bounciest, I'm your neighborly, sweet, and optimistic virgin voice and asked, hi, is David here? I don't want to suck his dick. That's not in the book. I was ad-libbing. The man stared at her. You must be Mr. Lightman, right? That's correct. Oh, yeah. She looked down at her apparel and realized that her image at the moment wasn't exactly virginal. Her shorts were riding well up on her thighs. She wasn't wearing a bra, and sweat was accentuating her limited, although prominent, qualities of her bust. I've been jogging. This bitch is 16, David Biscoff. Why the fuck are we talking about her titties in this moment? And it just keeps going. This literally, a few pages later, she's just like, why aren't you staring at my tits? In a monologue. Why? She didn't say that out loud. She's like, wow, why aren't you staring at my tits? You see these titties? And I'm like, David Biscoff, you know, I wasn't expecting the Bechdel test to pass here,
But how about we have a female character who can go 5 minutes without talking about sucking a dude's dick, or thinking about making out with dudes, or really just being overtly sexual? Can we have that? Can we get to the fucking plot? Oh, we can't, David Biscoff? I guess not. And so, basically where it is in the story is, they finally got into the Whopper, that's how I assume it's pronounced, server, and is basically he played his first game of thermonuclear war with the supercomputer, which is the plot of the movie, so if you don't know, there you go. And, you know, I just love a person that's just like, you know what, I broke into this server, which is probably, like, you know, deep military. Do you think I should play the game listed thermonuclear warfare? Yep, that sounds like a good idea. What next? Have a slumber party and try to summon a demon for shits and giggles? That's how you get demons. And that's how you get thermonuclear warfare. It's really simple, fam. So, I'm not loving this, to be honest. The characters are just the way it's written, is just, it reads like bad action-adventure novels, you know? Like, it has some strong cases of R/I'm very smart, strong cases of, like, you know, neckbeard shit, and a lot of men writing women, if we're being honest. Like, these are not great female characters, and I'm just not loving it. So, now that I read you that whole big titty litty bow bitchin' shit, let's actually get on to my second book. And so the second book I read is called Duty or Desire, and it started out okay, but it is just, it's not good. Like, I'm gonna read both of these around 2 stars when I finish them, because I'm gonna finish them for the challenge, because, you know, I'm making good progress, but dear Lord, are they pissing me off. Mostly, it's just, there's no good characterization for Duty or Desire. Both of the characters are really flat. They literally have their basic motivations that you read about in the first chapter, and they just keep bringing it up. And almost the entire book is like in a monologue between the two. There's pretty much all, it's just that, and then conversations with whatever random, like, you know, side character Branda Taylor wanted to bring back from, like, you know, one of her other books. And so, I'm finally got to the sex scene, and the repetition doesn't stop there. Like, Mina's nipples have gotten hard like 5 times already, and they haven't even taken their pants off yet. Like, literally, he has mentioned either his erection 6 other times. 3 of those were the phrase, my erection doubled in my pants. And I'm thinking, how does that happen? How big is your dick that it's doubling 3 separate times? You got a 12-foot dick over here? Damn, boy. No wonder everyone's jumping for that D. Like, come on, people. Come on. So it's like, and it's already 75% of the way through, and they're finally having a sex scene. Like, they literally just kissed a chapter ago. The first 4 chapters were just angst, and not even good angst, you know? Because there is good romance angst, where you're just like, oh, why can't I get this person's pussy/D? But, like, no, this is like the angst where it's like, I don't like them, I'm not into older men, like, all this other stuff, and it's like, it's annoying. And so, I made into a drinking game, right? Every time one of these things gets repeated or mentioned, I'm just like, drink, bitch. So if you are reading Duty or Desire ever in your life, this is the official drinking game. Don't at me. So number 1, every time one of them makes a reference to how hot the other person is. And you're thinking, like, Ryan, it's a romance book. And I'm just like, yeah. But, like, they are really into describing it. Like, there's a lot of gratuitous references to how hot they think it is. And it's, like, random shit. It's like, oh, my goodness, those shoulders, I want to fuck those shoulders. And it's like, and it just keeps going. Like, random, like, situations. It's like, I made a peach cobbler, and she's just like, I'd rather peach those tits. Go. And I'm just like, okay, we get it. They're hot. Move on. Do something. That's not talking. Next one is every time they desire, because they constantly talk about how much they want the other person, and it's like, how about you stop telling me you want this person and show me you want this person? Like, every time they look at each other, it's basically like they're getting hard and wet all over again. And I'm thinking, just fuck already if you're this horny about them, you know? It's like, what? Like,
it's the literary equivalent of cock teasing, because they constantly just like, oh my goodness. I look in her eyes and I just instant boner, and I'm just like, okay, why are you telling me this? We're in the middle of like a potluck, and you're telling me how she gets you hard. Like, okay, whatever. Next up is, oh my goodness, Mina is just the most like perfect woman you could ever write. Not only does she have a literal PhD in child psychology for a nanny position, not even like head of a daycare or a school, for like a random nanny position. She's just like, by the way, bitch, I'm like literally the highest qualifications. I'm like the master chef of child rearing. And I'm like, okay. But then it just keeps going. She's also an heir to a multimillionaire throne. She also, every animal and child instantly loves her, even if they hate people. And I'm just like, that's why I wrote here, every time she Disney princesses. And then it's like, I'm literally watching another scene, and she's just like, oh, by the way, I once, like, worked at a soup kitchen that was, like, run by, like, 3 Michelin star chefs. And I'm thinking, okay, so, like, not only are you, like, great at children, you're, like, an excellent cook, and animals love you, and you're, like, the most social person, and you've been to the potluck dinners, and it's like, anything, like, do you have a flaw, honey? Like, do you have anything that makes you, like, not become such an overpowered character? Because it's not, like, you don't need to keep piling it on, Like, we get it. You're hot, you're smart, you're good at everything, like, we get it. There's also this weird thing where it's like, they're not good at, like, describing the age of the kid, because, like, this is a nanny romance. But from, like, my general impression, I assume the kid was about 1.5 or 2, and she speaks in very coherent sentences. She literally said, like, like, Grace for dinner, like, in one scene. Like, she's like this weird, like, child wonderkin, like, one of those alien hybrids that, like, grows up super quickly. It's like that. And it's so creepy because they don't establish how old this child is. Because, like, one thing, it's just, like, she can recognize her colors now, but then it's just, like, also, like, she talks in, like, full sentences. Like, disconjointed, she's just, like, me pretty too. Like, that's still a full sentence, even if it has not great grammar, Like, so it's creepy, and they do it a lot. Then they also mention a lot of the backstory multiple times. So take a drink every time he mentions the specific details of his fiance's death. When Minnie, whatever her name is, mentions her brother or her mother, because she talks about them all the time. But once again, we're 75% of the way through, and she still has not resolved that plot point. Or Mina making a big deal of the kid calling her uncle daddy because, bitches be dead and they ain't coming back. And Mina has the biggest fucking hard-on for, like, I guess adopted parents or something. Because she goes on about it so much. Like, yeah, that's right. She calls you daddy. You're going to have to tell her the truth when she gets older and she's able to understand death and mortality. And I'm like, why are you so aggressive about this? Why do you have the biggest boner over this? Because she has the biggest boner over it. Let's see. Everyone in town is so fucking into shipping them. They're just like, by the way, when you gonna fuck? When you gonna suck that titty? And I'm like, why the fuck do you care? She's like her nanny. And they're like, so, you live in the same house together? I bet he has a big dick, right? But, like, you don't have to tell me. Like, and they're like, why are you talking about this? Why is this a thing, And they keep saying, well, I told you people would talk. And I'm just like, yeah. They would talk to each other. They wouldn't just directly ask you, yo, are you fucking your employee? Like, come on, people, come on. Let's see. Next time to drink is every time they reference another one of the books in the series, there is literally, I think, 5 different occasions already where they have met up with a different person from a different book and had a conversation about their romance. And, like, you know what? I'm glad that she has such an interconnected and fleshed out world for people getting dick and pussy. But at the same time, a little goes a long way. When I read, like, the Red Pyramid by, what's-his-face, Rick Riordan, there was, like, the tiniest, like, possible cross-connection between the, Kane Chronicles and the Percy Jackson series, and I laughed that shit up. I'm just like, oh my goodness, I love that you lampshaded that shit. But it's like, she is just like, she has to constantly remind you about, like, the books. And it's not like it's a trilogy. It's not like it's supposed to be, like, an interconnected, like, series.
it's like, a bunch of standalones that fit into a broader narrative because it's a romance novel series, But it's like, they literally just like reference her books so many times. And the last one was like, there's two more. They reference their age difference, which they don't clarify like how big it was, just that she doesn't date older men, and that he's an older guy, and there's an age difference, and it's like, okay, we get it, there's an age difference. And they reference this scene, and this is actually one of the bigger problems I have with the book, that they reference this entire scene where she goes to a Westmoreland chow down, which apparently is some sort of potluck, I'm assuming. And literally, guys, they reference it like 6 different times. We never see this event happen. And that's pretty much because the entire book is telling me what happens in the book and not showing me what happens in the book. It's like, can we just have one event where something actually happens in description and not through like dialogue or in a monologue? Like, literally, they telegraph their actions more in this book than like a radio play. It's frustrating, and the romance isn't even good. Like, the characters are so flat because Brenda Taylor Lilly just puts no characterization into it. You basically get that he likes his kid, he's a policeman, and you basically get that she likes his kid, she has a shitty brother, and she's a nanny. Like, I cannot tell you a single personality trait they have besides being like genuinely like generically Southern or Western. Brenda Taylor got a big old boner for like, like the whole Western aesthetic. He's a policeman, but literally every scene the guy's like in, Pete, he's like described as like a sexy cowboy. And like, I'm just like, okay, did you want a sexy cowboy or did you want a sexy policeman? Because you're gonna have to work a little harder to distinguish like, what type of sexy man he is, okay? And you're not really selling it. You're telling me he's hot. You're telling me she's hot. You're not showing me this hotness. It's just, yeah, real bad case of telling, not showing. So, I'm going to finish these books if it kills me, because I want to read, like, the rest of the series. No, I don't want to read so I want to read the rest of my TV. I do not want to read the rest of this series. Like, maybe this one was just, like, one of those, like, mid-grade slump ones where, like, she's just, like, kind of busting it out for the money, but, like, it's not. I am not loving it. I'm enjoying so, moving on, I'm enjoying the reading rush. On one hand, like, I'm finding a lot of time to read, which is nice. I'm also trying to, like, think of, like, cool, fun things to do during the day so that it's not just me talking about books, which I know, like, that's the point of a reading rush, but it's like, come on. And so, like, I don't know, it's a fun experience, and I think it's, like, really a great challenge to push myself in. So, I need to finish my lunch, and then I get to go spend some time with Mom and Dad, because apparently they're not going to church today, and whatever, and so I'm going to be heading out then. So, my afternoon's going to be a little busy, but I'll try to get to you sometime mid-afternoon, and we're going to be doing some reading sprints, hopefully. So, that's going to be really fun. Yo, guys, what's up? It's about 8:30 right now, so I think it's been about 5 hours since I've last seen you. Hey, I'm wearing a different outfit and another ridiculous headband. But good news is that I have finished War Games. This is good news because the book is finally fucking over. Just first off, I'm gonna rate this 2 stars. I don't think it deserves 1 star. I found like, the ending actually entertaining for the most part. So, I will give this 2 stars because it's not great, but I don't think it deserves to be in the bottom trash tier heap of garbage of books I hate, Issues with this book, like I mentioned before, it has a lot of really kind of gross writing. The men writing women issue was not like, that apparent. There was literally barely any women in this. You can just say that that's a fault of the movie since this is literally pretty much just a word-for-word retelling. Not like a script retelling, but pretty much just like a plot event retelling of the movie. I'll tell you this much, the movie does it a lot better. And I did do some research, by which I mean I asked my aunt to Google when the movie came out. And this was released the same year. So this was released concurrently with the movie. I don't know much about the history of this book, but it was most likely a tie-in with the movie. So we can't even say that this was like... So this was literally supposed to be like the book version of the movie. And it just does not pan out as well. pretty much the same thing, but the movie just has it's so much better. There's more spectacle, the events work better, and you don't get into the head of the characters, which is actually a good thing because these characters are not great. There's literally so many instances of like David Lightman and the other people being like, "Ugh, all these dumb people, these dumb military people, and these dumb jocks, and my dumb dad," and it's like, they don't understand my big galaxy brain. And I'm like, okay, go off, queen, whatever. And I think the part that buzzed me the most of it was just this, and I don't remember if it was in the movie itself because I saw that movie like years ago, but they keep using this sort of, I guess, metaphor of a loop. And the issue is that not only do they, it's not a good explanation of it, which I really hate because, you guys don't know, I like computer programming. That's one of my interests of mine. I actually understood what they were talking about when they talked about a programming loop. And so here's the thing. Basically, what they were talking about was the concept of an infinite loop. Basically, a fancy coding way of using the term stuck in a rut. And so the issue what I had with it was that they could have done a lot more with the metaphor. Let me explain what an infinite loop is for the children in the back that weren't paying attention in computer class. So I have been having a little bit hard time actually figuring how to define a loop, and I figured the best way to do it would be an example. So when I was in high school, I learned BASIC, which is a basic computer language that was made for the MS-DOS system, essentially. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's an acronym. Pretty much, I made a program that printed a string of characters, and essentially, I would ask them for how many lines. And so I'd ask them for a number, and depending on how many numbers it is, that would be how many times it would run a specific code, printing that line of text, making a fancy graphic. And so literally all the code did was just print a, cute, cool-looking graphic on the screen. So to do that, I used what was called a loop, which is basically a thing of code which works like a mathematical function. Basically, you give it a starting and end portion, and it will repeat until it has gone through every iteration of that. And so, basically, most loops have an end function. Basically, they have a set limit in which they will stop running that code over and over again. That's why it's called a loop, right? It starts, and then it loops around, and then it starts again, and it loops around. And there's different types, but they all work like that. So in the book, the type they were talking about is what's known as an infinite loop, which is kind of a programming error. Basically, when that happens, you give the computer an argument, which is basically one of the things you tell a computer about when you set up a function or a loop, that it cannot achieve. So basically, let's say that you start it off at the entry point at 5, just like the number 5, and it goes and it increments, it goes up 1 every time the loop iterates. So, and you said that the ending point should be 4, that the program should stop running if the variable is at the value 4. Obviously, if it starts at 5 and it increases, it will never match that conditional statement, and therefore the loop will run forever. That's the sort of programming issue that what they're talking about in the book, where you have a condition that can never be met and is unattainable, and therefore one is stuck in this repeating holding pattern. And I think, that's a really interesting concept, but they don't really work with it. They sort of just use the term loop as a fancy, get it, I'm a programmer way of the phrase being stuck in a rut, and it's just, they could have done more with it. They could have really had a very insightful and interesting philosophical moment discussing sort of how computer programming and the human mind is connected, and that the difference between artificial and intelligence and human intelligence is very similar, and that we're simply just different forms of, sapiens. But they didn't go with that because it's not the theme, and they also just kind of made a half-assed computer analogy. And, honey, we can do better. I wanted to do a couple reading sprints before I made my sorbet. So, I'm going to do 2 reading sprints. I think I'm going to cut it down to 10 minutes. Not because I don't love you, but because this took a lot longer filming than I thought it was going to. So here are the books up. The next 2 books. And whichever one I guess I get more invested into is going to be the one I'm going to be reading next. Though obviously I'm going to read all of them. So first up, Clockwork Orange, Anthony Burgess, and The Elusive Mrs. Polyfax by Dorothy Gilliman. I'm excited for it, and I think that, like, these are the two books I really, 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 really wanted to read. And so I'm just like, honey, I deserve a freaking reading treat, okay? I had to read that War Games, and it was just all kinds of no. And I've had to be slogging through that Duty or Desire, which is literally just, no disrespect, Miss Taylor, but, like, that's some cheap paperback ass romance, like. I was being treated like a king to some nice romance lately, and then I had to read that, and I'm just like, ooh, honey, that's too much pulp for me. That is too much cheese, too much corn. This is freaking succotash delight, and I just want to let you know a nice meaty steak, and you did not give me that. So I'm gonna shut the fuck up now. Play myself some like indie J-rock, like on my laptop, like a poser, and just like do some reading sprints. After that, like, let's see how that survey turns out, because I'm really excited for it. Oh, and if you give a fuck, I actually just froze the rest of those plums. I'm going to try to do, like, a nice plum compote later on this week. But if not, I didn't want them to go bad, so...
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Take a step back to see the truth around you. From a distance you can tell. You and me were meant to be outdoors, forever free. You and me, meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free.
Okay guys, so as you saw from those clips, I was having a merry old time, and I guess should I just give you the triad chapter impression of the first of the books I read. So I only got to page 14 of this book, so that was about 5 pages, not that great. The main thing with A Clockwork Orange is that it is really dense. It has a lot of slang. I'll just read you like the first paragraph, right? What's it gonna be then, eh? That was me, that is Alex, my free droogs, that is Pete, Georgie, and Dim. Dim being really dim, and we sat in the Corova milk ball making up our racidocs what to do with the evening. A flip dark chill winter bastard through dry. The Corova milk ball was a milk plus mess show, and you may, oh my brothers, have forgotten what these messes were like. Things changing so scory these days, and everybody being very quick to forget. Newspapers not being read much neither. Well, what they sold there was milk plus something else. They had no license for selling liquor, but there was no law yet against producing some of the new dishes that they used to put into the old Moloko. So you compete it with Velocet or Synthmax or Drain Chrome or one or two other vegetables which would give you a nice quiet horror show, 15 minutes admiring Bog, and all his holy angels and saints, and your left shoe with lights bursting all over your mugs. You repeat milk with knives in it, as we used to say, and this would sharpen you up and make you ready for a bit of dirty 20-1, and that was what we're repeating this afternoon. I'm starting off the story with. Like, what was that? Basically, the entire book is written in a colloquial slang, Nadset. So that's the name of the slang language that they have in it. Basically, like, there's some sort of far future, and they use a lot of just really thick slang throughout the entire thing. And so it is a little bit hard to comprehend, but that is one of the things that makes the writing style so interesting. So, in the 5 books that I read, basically, they went out of the milk bar, which is basically a bar where they drink milk, but the milk is laced with some kind of drugs. And as far as I really understand, they're essentially taking uppers. My best guess for, what the type would be something like PCP, where it, be a very aggressive physical high, because they wanted to get into a giant brawl. And so, in the next 5 pages, they meet a man on the street. So, basically, they just mugged a random dude on the street because they are a street gang who commits ultra-violence, which is basically aggressive and random acts of violence in the society. It's an issue, They're part of, a gang, and they go and beat people up. So, basically, imagine if Outsiders met Blade Runner, and then made it super dark and edgy, and that's what Clockwork Orange is. If you're into, thrillers, or you're interested in books that have, really extreme violence in them, this is the type of book to read, because it is very violent, it is very dark at times. So, the whole thing's just, dark and edgy, and it's great for how dark and edgy it is. The next book is less dark and edgy, and that was is it Elusive? Yeah, The Elusive Mrs. Polyphax. So, I don't remember what I said early in this video. I think I might have said she went to Turkey, or someplace else. She goes to Bulgaria in this book. And for the life of me, I can't remember where Bulgaria is. I know it's somewhere in Europe, but the exact area escapes my mind. So I only got to chapter 2. Luckily, this is a lot less dense than The Clockwork Orange. And pretty much what is happening in this book is that Carstairs, who is the basically her CIA handler, is basically heard word from a person who has escaped, from a spy who's escaped from Bulgaria, as informed that there's an underground movement that needs passports so that they can, have, people escape from the very totalitarian government-locked country of Bulgaria. And so right now, it's sort of the introductionary phrase, but basically, she's still, getting ready to, actually go to Bulgaria, ditch, her, government tail, and just, party hardy and deliver some passports. And so, I think I'm going to choose this book next, just because I love The Clockwork Orange. I really want to get into it, because I want to read one classic this reading rush, but I feel like if I reward myself with my favorite book in the middle of it, I'm going to be really, really excited and really, really motivated to finish up, a TBR that I know is going to be just as excellent. Because I have this one left, and then I have The Cat Who Ate Danish Martin, this is just going to be a really good reread, and I'm going to bust through it. This is, one of my favorite series, so I feel solid. I'm really happy about this. I'm going to try to crack into this a little bit more tonight, but if I just, play video games for the rest of the night, whatevs, because I've done a lot of reading today, and I feel really good, so. Oh, I don't remember if I mentioned it earlier, or in this video. There's, all these, Instagram challenges, and, other stuff for, the Reading Rush. Apparently there's also a Reading Rush tag, which I might have to do. That sounds like fun. So maybe I'll film that tomorrow if I have some time. Anyway, guys, I'm going to shut up because I really, really want to, make the sorbet today. So I'm going to get on that.